So if you're one of those people that's got a bathroom that you can't stand, maybe it's laid out weird, maybe there's just like things that you just don't like, maybe beyond things like paint, like major things, this is going to be a good video because we had a bathroom here that was laid out weird, but also like I feel like everything about this bathroom was not functional and not good, and honestly was pretty gross. And I know, like for me, one of my most hated things in this bathroom was the shower. We had a very small corner shower there. It was just one of those insert styles, but had the frames and stuff around it at the bottom and the top, and everything was nasty, and it was impossible to clean, and it's just a real nightmare for us the entire time. What was probably one of your most hated things when it came to this bathroom?
Probably all of it, honestly. I hated everything. We did have a toilet situation that, because of either the builder or previous owners did things, the toilet had to be turned weird, and it was close to the wall, and then on the back wall, it was like, I don't know, a foot away from it, and it just, friends would come over and we'd, show them what one of our future projects would be, and they were like, that's really odd. So probably the toilet, but really all of it.
Yeah, that toilet, I think what happened was, it was originally designed, so you had the shower over here, and then you had the toilet on this side, and the toilet, I think, was originally designed to face the shower. But the problem was that when you put with the toilet in there, it wouldn't actually fit, or at least you couldn't set on it, and it fit. So I think the previous owner ended up turning it 90 degrees and turning it this direction. The problem was then is it put you literally with your shoulder against the wall when you were on the toilet, and then you had like a 4-inch gap on the back wall. So it was a real mess. And then eventually the flange and all of that stuff kind of broke loose. And that was when we kind of put the nail in the coffin, I think, for us to just be like, okay, we've got to prioritize this and get this going, because at that point I didn't really want to have to do a bunch of concrete work just to go ahead and fix a toilet that was in the wrong space. When we started this, the color of these walls were kind of like a beige.
Probably about brown. The color of my shirt.
Yeah, I mean, kind of this nasty beige brown. Not that your shirt's
it's okay for sweatshirts, a shirt, not so great for a wall.
Yeah. And so we ended up kind of, as we started demoing this, ripping out the shower, the toilet. You've probably watched a lot of shows and stuff on HGTV, and you see people when they go to ripping stuff out, they make it look very simple. And honestly, like, we ripped this out. I mean, did we rip it out in a day?
I think so, yeah. I think we did, and then maybe the tile the next day.
Right, so. Yeah. And the tile is a whole other thing. So you've got the floor tile that was in here before. It was bigger tile, but it was kind of, I assume it was kind of brownish, tannish color, but I don't know if that was just dirt.
Builder beige.
Yeah. But it was kind of had like the pits in it.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And so it was really hard to clean. It was really gross. So we were excited to finally be able to go ahead and to just get all of that tile out of here. Now, all of the demo work and everything that we did that ourselves. And a good portion of this we did do ourselves. And most of the time here, the stuff that we do it ourselves. But there were things like tile that we just decided we didn't want any part of. And there were some plumbing things that ended up being probably a little bit bigger than I wanted to tackle. We had to have kind of like a new manifold put in on one part with our plumbing and things like that. And so there were just some things that I decided I wanted to have a guy come in and do. And we've got a guy that's a plumber that always does us a good job. And so we ended up using him and had him come in and do things. We really kind of trust what he has to say. And it's very rare, I feel like, when it comes to contractors and things, to be able to find people that you can really trust and you don't always feel like they're just trying to upsell you on something. And so after we ripped all this stuff out, we knew we wanted to be able to make this a lot bigger shower. Kind of talk about your kind of vision for this shower and kind of your whole thought was as you were kind of looking at that.
Yeah, so coming up with a design, obviously I only have so much of a layout that I get to work with. Wish we could blow out walls and all of that stuff, but that comes with a higher price tag, and because we wanted to do this with cash, wasn't really an option. So obviously we knew we needed to move the toilet, and in doing so we were going to have this open space, and it didn't really make sense to do like shelving or anything. And so that's when I was like, oh, well, why don't we just make the wall bigger or the shower bigger? And so with doing that, we ended up having to shorten the vanity. And I went back and forth, Jeremy and I both did. It took me about a year to finalize the whole design. And I went back and forth with deciding, okay, do we want one sink or two sinks since we have to shorten the vanity? And deep down, I really did not want to do just one sink. I knew for resale value, it wasn't good. You know, this is our master bathroom. And so we kind of compromised there. And we did do the one sink. But to ease my mind, we did go ahead and leave the plumbing behind, so that if later on we change our mind or decide that we want another sink, that the plumbing is there. Or if we do end up selling, again, the plumbing is still there for the next homeowners. And so when I designed the vanity, I did it in a way that the option of another sink is available. As of now, I am not regretting the decision, because we did have to shorten the vanity. If we would have done the two sinks, it would have only left us with a really small space for, curling iron, blow dryer, makeup, all the products that normally would go in the sink, which wasn't a big deal because our last vanity, even though it was longer, when I was getting ready, everything ended up in the sink. Blow dryer, curling iron, everything. So
Yeah, and I don't know if you know this or not, but it's actually not the best place for them to be is in the sink. So I personally, so this is what we run into sometimes when it comes to remodeling and working on different projects is I tend to be a little bit more function over form, and she tends to be a little bit more form over function. So we try to find a meeting place in the middle. And like she said, it is nice now to have this space over here that doesn't always have a blow dryer in the sink. So we do like that. Talk about like just kind of the reason that you chose like the subway tile, the floor tile, and some of that stuff.
yeah, so design wise, I really enjoy a craftsman style, even though we technically are in I think it's technically like a 2-story ranch / farmhouse-ish. So aesthetically, that's what I lean towards. And so we actually did this tile in our laundry room. And so I wanted to call back to that, use it in here. And then we also did a similar hexagon tile in there. And so same kind of thing, call back to that to kind of make the house flow and everything. And I enjoy an all white, and then bring in color and texture and warmth with woods and decor and everything else. So
one of the things to always remember too, and we may have talked about this a minute ago, but when you demo things, it's always going to come out faster than it's ever going to go back in. So we rip it out in a day. It took us 8 months to put it all back together. So for example, this wall has a bow in it, and it bothers me probably more than it does anybody else that ever just walks in here, because the average person probably doesn't just see it right off. But it has a bow in it. This wall has a bow in it. You have to understand that sometimes we don't always it doesn't get to be perfect all the time, but what you're doing is you're just trying to upgrade it. I think you've got a saying for that. I don't remember.
yeah, so our motto was, it's not going to be perfect, but it's going to be better than what it was. So we ran into, the original plan was to do built-in medicine cabinets over the sink for more storage, and quickly had to nix that once we ripped out the drywall and realized that there was plumbing in the way of where we needed to frame out for that medicine cabinet. So and then trying to line up light fixtures with mirrors and where sinks are going to go when there isn't a sink in there to line everything up with. That was when I quickly had to adapt and kind of take on that motto of it's not going to be perfect, but it's going to be a heck of a lot better than it was.
Right. Yeah. And it is. It's night and day. Another thing too, that when we went to ripping all this out and everything, you know, we pull everything out. We gut everything. We got rid of a bunch of drywall, some stuff that had just, you know, a little bit of mold and stuff behind it, some different things. We got all of that stuff gutted out. And again, you walk in and you feel like you've really done something, and then that's when the work really begins. And you know, we had that toilet over here, and so to take a toilet from here to here, that means you've got to move all that plumbing. And unfortunately, we're in a concrete subfloor, so that means we took the toilet from there about 2.5 feet, and and I had to jackhammer all of that out to move that plumbing. And so that was a pretty big undertaking. At the time, I thought it was a big undertaking until I got ready to move the plumbing for the tub, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. But jackhammering concrete is not for the faint of heart, and we did not know, but we actually have a post-tension slab here. Typically that is stamped in the garage, or there will be some kind of nomenclature somewhere that lets you know that like you've got a post-tension slab, but we didn't have any of that, and so we found that out the hard way. And thankfully it wasn't the hard way like we broke a cable or anything, but we found it in the process of doing that jackhammering. And thankfully I was taking my time enough that I just wasn't going crazy. But that's something to remember, is that just because you're like, oh no, it's fine, like you can do this, but you've got to be careful, and you just got to watch for stuff like that. Typically, most of your other stuff is you're going to see, like your plumbing and stuff is most likely not going to be in the concrete other than when it stubs up. But things like those cables for post-tension slabs can definitely be in there. And then after we moved that, so like Jess said a minute ago, we shortened this vanity because the vanity went a little farther down, so we shortened this guy up. And then we left the plumbing there, and then as we went on down this direction, we went ahead and we just had them put in a new the ball valves and stuff, because all the ones that we had were kind of terrible and didn't really want to shut off and things. So like our main, we had them do a completely new main for the entire house, because the main is actually, believe it or not, underneath here. I feel like that's a weird spot, but that's where it's at. So we had them put a new one in while they were already here doing that stuff. So turning around, now this is literally we just flipped 180 degrees, and now we're looking at this other side. So again, this is kind of a galley style bathroom. It's only about 6.5 feet wide, and it's about 18 feet long, I think is what it was. So this is, I would say, probably Jess's favorite area.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
I would agree.
Yeah. So the tub that was here before was an old jetted tub, and the jets have not worked since we lived here. The funny thing is, too, is you don't realize how big one of those things are and how much space they took up. That thing took up this entire area, pretty much from the doors over. And speaking of doors, so this actually had a door that swung into the bathroom, and it always hit that tub. And so that was one of the things that we just first off just said we're going to ditch the door, because I don't know if you realize this or not, but a lot of times if you've got a space that is pretty cramped, if there's a way that you can figure out how to get rid of a door, it saves a lot of space. You will not believe how much space a door can take up, swinging in and out, and having to have the egress opening and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So gutting
And
all of this.
with that door, ideally a pocket door
would
have been good, but we do have plumbing in this wall, so obviously it's out. So the barn door, even though some people say they're out of style, you do you and do what you love, and I love barn doors.
Yeah. In my opinion, for this style of bathroom, I feel like this door really kind of sets it off in here. Whereas
warms it up.
A pocket door, it works, but I mean it's very hidden.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, you know, some people want that, some people want a little bit more of a statement.
Design.
Yeah. But the plumbing for this bathtub was actually on this end of the wall. So that was the first problem that we had, was that we got a door here that's going to be going open and close. How are we going to deal with that? Well, we've already jackhammered that. Let's jackhammer this. Problem was, this was a lot worse. I ran into some issues with the footing. of the foundation and things like that. I did eventually get it, but this was by far the worst part because I really thought that I could just do this with a rotary hammer drill, and really I probably should have used a jackhammer, but because I had already found the post-tension cable down there, it may be a little bit uneasy to start using a jackhammer again since I knew. And with that rotary hammer drill, you've got a little bit more control when you're in here jackhammering away on this thing. So the other thing that we did too was this wall is actually brought out the width of a 2x4. So this didn't used to have that ledge. All it had was a windowsill. So we brought that out. It serves a couple of purposes. One, it kind of widens this out and gives a space to put cutesy little knick-knacky kind of things. But then also too, it gives an area for the plumbing. So when they moved the plumbing from this wall around and turned it, it would have been really difficult for the plumber to turn all of that into that existing wall, because when you come to a corner like that, there's a lot of 2x4s and stuff that are kind of tucked away in there. It would have been difficult. So this made his life a lot easier. Also, it gets it off of that wall so that you don't have to worry as much about dealing with things like freezing and stuff like that. It also had him go ahead and turn this in here so that it comes right over here, and the valve and everything, we just had him mount that valve. And then we did the install on just the hardware, just the pretty stuff. But that stuff, it was nice for me to just go to work one day and come home and that stuff is done. And I felt like, again, it was a pretty reasonable price. The other thing we did too is we went ahead and we put an access panel right here because we got access to it on this back side of this wall. And so we put an access panel so that if there's ever an issue with the plumbing, we can go ahead and get in there and turn this off, because we had him add a couple of shut-off valves down there. So if we ever had a leak, ever had a problem in this wall, God forbid, because that is a downside to doing a tile wainscoting, is that if you have an issue, you got to deal with cutting and breaking into that tile to deal with it. So hopefully that never happens, but if it does, we've got a way to kill that if we have to. And then moving on to this tub, we went back and forth with several different ideas for a tub. You knew that you wanted a clawfoot tub, but talk about just kind of your thought process with that tub.
So growing up, I grew up with a cast iron clawfoot tub, and I've wanted one ever since I left home. And so ideally, I really wanted the cast iron clawfoot. I didn't think I was going to be able to talk them into it just because they're so heavy, but I did. It's cast iron, and it was a beast to get in here. But every night when I take a bath, it's worth it. The acrylics are nice, but I knew that they probably weren't going to last as long as I would want. Even though we probably, won't live as long as this cast iron tub will. I wanted it, if we're spending the money, I want it to live on long after me. I want it to be sustainable and all of that. So cast iron was the way to go. I don't have to worry about, if I get in it or somebody bumps it, like, is it gonna move? So that's why I chose that.
It's all there for sure. I think, was it 300-ish pounds?
350, I think.
Okay, and that's empty. And I think it was like 600 or 800 once you fill it up with water.
Yeah.
But yeah, this thing was a bit of a chore to plumb. So I did do the drain for it and ran into a few different issues there, but eventually we finally got it squared away. The thing about it is, when it comes to that, is just there's not a lot of, honestly, I couldn't find a lot of good information about doing this drain. So luckily the guy that had done our plumbing, he's super nice, and he just came in, and I texted him and asked him some different questions. I even made him a phone call or two, and he was very nice to help and to give me a few pointers on what I needed to do, because the jackhammering and all of that stuff and doing the drains, I knew that I could handle PVC. I didn't know as much about the copper and dealing with going from copper to PEX. So anything that we could do like that I could do myself, I wanted to do, because just to jackhammer this out was going to be like $1,800 or something. And so that was a huge cost.
And rightfully so.
That's what I would charge. If you asked me to come jackhammer that out for you, I would charge you $1,800 for sure.
Yeah.
Because it was a chore. And then you know, this whole nook in this area, in my opinion, we're going to put a blind here. We do the wood woven blinds and stuff, and we've yet to do that, but I think probably after Christmas we're going to look at doing something there with that blind and getting that in there. But that kind of sums up this whole area. This hardware and stuff that we use for this tub, this all just mounts directly against the wall, and we knew that we wanted to go to that wall rather than do the style that's kind of the pedestal style, because you kind of heard some horror stories about those breaking loose. Where this is mounted against 2x4 studs, it's all attached in there. It's going to be a lot harder to break this stuff loose. And I think this was fairly inexpensive. This was not a name brand, was it?
No. Due to the price, this was significantly less expensive.
Like,
so,
what was like a Delta?
Man, I think it was like $700 to $900 for just the one. So, and we did Delta everywhere else, and it was reasonably priced, but this, I couldn't do it. So we've had pretty good luck with Amazon brands on their faucets. We've used them everywhere else in the house, and so I took my chances on this one. So far it's great.
Yeah, and I've read some things about this. So this tub filler, you literally just screw it into the fixture. And I've read some stuff, and people talked about that, like once you got it in there, that like it would be turned the wrong direction, or it would be upside down or something. We didn't run into that. I think that some of that could come from a couple of different things. One, if you ended up putting the valve in upside down, that could cause this to land in the wrong spot. But hopefully they've engineered and milled this good enough that it will land there. The other thing is, don't forget to put some Teflon on there. That Teflon tape is one of the things that I noticed that really tightened it up, so that when it finally got to there, it was able to stop there and feel like it had a good seal. So when you see this, again, you may have noticed it a minute ago, but we don't have glass here. And the reason for that is a couple of things. One, it's expensive, okay? Super expensive. We had no idea. We knew we wanted to go with a frameless glass system. It ran from $2,500 to $3,500 were the price quotes that we got for that. And this is about 72 inches, I think, or something-ish, 74. But it was going to be custom done. But that was what we were looking at when it came to the price. So that was a little bit of kind of something that kept us from thinking about it. The other thing was that over here, so where your curb lines up, right here, exactly where you would need to mount to attach for the frameless glass mounting points, all of the plumbing runs directly going to the upstairs bathroom, is 100% behind this. So the guys at the frameless glass places were a little bit apprehensive about trying to do this and to drill into this, and even just to put anchors in here. Realistically, if you were doing this, you really would want to have some kind of a stud behind this area where your shower curb's at, so that they could go into a stud and use that versus an anchor. But they will do them with anchors, but they were very apprehensive about this side because of the fact that there was so much plumbing there. This side over here, no plumbing to deal with. They weren't apprehensive about that at all. They felt totally fine with that side. But this was the side that made them a little bit uneasy.
Because this is the side that the door would have been on, and so you've got the swinging, and it's constantly moving.
Yeah.
So they did say that they could do it, but at the end of the day, I didn't want to risk it, and so.
And they even talked like that they would kind of preferred to have been able to access the wall from the other side, so that they could see all of that plumbing as they were trying to do this and not accidentally get into anything. One of the companies said that we would have to sign a waiver, basically that said that if they hit something, it wasn't their fault and it was on us. So I didn't like that either. But personally, I like this. When she told me she wanted to do a shower curtain at first, I told her no. Even though it was expensive, I was like, no, like this, we didn't spend all this money to do a shower curtain. But she, like she does, she proved me wrong. And I think it looks really good. Now, this is not just a typical shower curtain, right? So this is like an actual...
It's not a shower curtain at all.
It's a window curtain,
It's a window curtain. And then on the back side, it has a shower liner that I have attached with, I don't remember what they're called. They're like an upholstery type hook. So this is an extra, I guess the liner is extra long liner. So I think it's 74 inches long, maybe 84. I think it's 84. And then the curtains are 84 too. So that allowed me to kind of bring it up closer to the ceiling to elongate the room. But I couldn't go up all the way like I really wanted to, just because I wanted to allow for airflow for the fan.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know, something else we kind of forgot to mention too is this niche back here. Jess actually wanted kind of a big, oversized type niche, and I think now she even wishes it was still longer. But she had these taller bottles of stuff that she knew she wanted definitely to have plenty of room in there for. And so we told the guy that did the tile, which our tile
showed him the
guys,
bottle that I wanted to fit. He measured it and made sure. So that is something, because the average niche is shorter. So if you do use larger shampoo bottles and all of that, you will want to measure those.
Yeah. Another thing too, when it comes to hiring people to do things like tile, we've had a couple of different guys do tile in this house a couple of different times, and these guys were by far the best.
Yeah.
Without any doubt, everything that they did, it took them probably, I'm going to say at least a half a day to just to lay everything out with laser levels, because he wanted to make sure that this wainscoting, as it came around, that it looked right as it came up against this vanity. He wanted to make sure that it looked right as it came up to the niche. He didn't want to end up with some little sliver of tile that he had to stick in somewhere. And if anything, he wanted to be able to split the difference on where the smaller pieces of tile ended up laying, all of that stuff. So all contractors are not created equal, but I will say, I have found that when you do find some good ones, you definitely want to hang on to the phone numbers, because they're, I mean, like anytime that we have anything done that we don't want to mess with, like we're going to let them do this. And we knew coming into this, because we wanted this room to be so just amazing for us, we knew that we wanted to spend the time and the money to do this. And I don't regret this one bit.
And one of the ways that we found the contractors that we worked with is we asked our friends. We have some friends that are in real estate business, and they have different rent houses and stuff, and so they flip houses, and so they use contractors all the time. And so if it's good enough for them, it's good enough for us. It's kind of how we look at it, and we pick who we're going to use, basically.
Yeah. And then one last thing I wanted to touch on was this vanity. So we built this vanity. It's got all soft closed drawers and all of that. The one thing that we ended up doing a little bit different that I don't regret at all, I think this was the best thing we ever did, was this top we actually had custom made to custom fit. And we had a company come out. Now this is quartz, but they come out and they literally measured this space. They measured with the vanity in here, and their digital, all of their stuff, even saw the bow that was in this wall. So I mentioned a bow. There's a bow in that wall about a ½ inch difference. And they built this vanity so that on the back side, that bow is cut into this vanity. So when they brought it in and slid it in, it just slides right up against the wall, and it looks perfect. If you'd have just bought a vanity from Lowe's or Home Depot and it was just a rectangular vanity, or a vanity top, I mean, if you just bought one and brought it in here, now you're going to end up with a gap on each corner where it tries to rock back and forth. You're going to have to caulk that or do something. So this really hides that imperfection. So again, that's something that you might want to give some consideration to if you're doing something with a vanity, especially if you got a wall like that, because they brought it in, they did the whole 9 yards, and they set it in here, and it fit like a glove.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it wasn't as expensive as you would think. So basically, we built the vanity, we bought the top, and all of it together was right at what we would have bought one from a big box store, except this, because we built it, it's made of better material and not MDF. And that's with a countertop company cutting it and installing it. So it's really not that much more expensive than doing a custom. Obviously, different areas, prices are different, but it's definitely something to look into and consider.
I think the top was like 600 or something.
Yeah, and that's with the sink.
And that was with the sink, and that was installed.
Yeah.
630.
Yeah.
Somewhere in there. And you know, we kind of based this vanity style off of another one that we had seen at Home Depot's website, and it was like $800 or $900. And when you looked at the material, like she said, it was all MDF.
Yeah.
And it was, you know, I don't like MDF for a bathroom application where there's the possibility of water and things, because it can bubble and things. So I like this. This is all good cabinet grade birch plywood that I built this out of. And again, too, it's got all of the good soft close mechanisms, all of those things.
And we were able to add some different features. So in front of the sink, there's a pop-out like you would see in a kitchen for like sponges. That's where our toothbrushes and toothpaste go. And so you're able to add a little bit more storage if you're able to do custom.
Yeah. The other thing we did too was on that wall before, there used to be the exhaust fan outlet and stuff was over there, or the switch was over there, because that was where the toilet was at. We rotated it around to this side, and then we ended up moving our plug and centering this up over the vanity. But so this is actually a wireless exhaust fan that's up here. We really like this thing so far. I was a little apprehensive about going wireless, and I was so apprehensive that, me being me, I went ahead and I pulled wire in to this box back here. So there is actually hardwire wire there. If we had decided, okay, this sucks, we don't like this thing, we want something else. So I went ahead and did that. I don't think that's going to be the case. We can change the colors on this thing.
It has a speaker.
It has a speaker. It's super quiet. So yeah, I mean, that part of it, I felt like really, I mean, I think this was a couple $100 for this fan. You can buy way cheaper ones, but the ones that I've seen that are way cheaper also sound like a 747 taken off. So this one's super quiet. So, I mean, like this morning I got in here and the shower was already running, and I couldn't remember if I turned the fan on, and I hit it and I turned it off.
I do the same thing.
You know, because it was,
I'm like, is it really on?
Yeah, it was very, very quiet. So hopefully this gives you some ideas, some inspiration, some thoughts. Kind of, if you've got questions about this process of what this looks like, if there's something we didn't cover, maybe you need, you know, different ideas. We're going to put links up to all the different hardware pieces and stuff that you see in here. We'll put all of that stuff up. But if you got questions like, hey, what was the tub? What was this? What was that? Maybe we forget to link something up. Be sure and just let us know over in the comments.
Yeah.